Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg spent hours on Capitol Hill today taking questions from senators about Facebook's role in the 2016 election and in American society more generally. We'll talk to one of the senators who was there and spoke to Zuckerberg and more broadly what it meant. But first, Brett Larson, an anchor at Fox News Headlines 24/7 who covers tech for our show, has the big moments from today. Brett?
It was quite the day, Tucker. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg checked in with Congress today for day one of hearings, and we learned a little bit about the inner workings of the social media giant. One thing we heard repeatedly was exactly what Facebook is and is not.
What you think of as the Facebook service, right? That's everyone has control every single time that they go to share that. They can delete that data anytime they want. Full control, the majority of the data.
Yeah, but sharing everything, not so much.
Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
I think that might be what this is all about. Your right to privacy, the limits of your right to privacy, and how much you give away.
Yeah, but with 2.2 billion users and in the wake of concerns about more than 80 million users having their data stolen by political consulting firm Cambridge Analytica, is Facebook your only choice?
If I buy a Ford and it doesn't work well and I don't like it, I can buy a Chevy. If I'm upset with Facebook, what's the equivalent product that I can go sign up for?
Well, there's the second category that I was going to talk about.
I'm not talking about categories. I'm talking about, is there real competition you face? You don't think you have a monopoly?
It certainly doesn't feel like that to me.
Okay.
Well, there is also concerns, Tucker, about First Amendment rights and just what control the social media giant has over what you see, say, and share.
You say that you have 15 to 20,000 people working on security and content review. Do you know the political orientation of those 15 to 20,000 people engaged in content review?
No, Senator. We do not generally ask people about their political orientation when they're joining the company.
Senator Ben Sasse asked a similar question about censorship on the site, and CEO Mark Zuckerberg said the speech they censor is anytime someone pushes to hurt others. Senator Sasse was also concerned about addiction to the social media site.
As a dad, do you worry about social media addiction as a problem for America's teens?
Well, my hope is that we can be idealistic but have a broad view of our responsibility.
And Tucker, we will get more from Zuckerberg tomorrow when he sits down for day two. He has certainly been very frank in his responses and a little obtuse about specifics, which made the lack of understanding of exactly how Facebook works and our understanding of it very clear.
Thanks for that, Brett. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana was one of the many senators who spoke to Zuckerberg today. Here's part of it.
Here's what everybody's been trying to tell you today, and I say this gently. Your user agreement sucks. I'm going to suggest to you that you go back home and rewrite it. And tell your $1,200 an hour lawyers, no disrespect, they're good. But tell them you want it written in English.
Senator Kennedy joins us tonight. Senator, thanks for coming on.
You bet.
What was the point of this hearing there? What laws are you all considering to constrain Facebook?
You know, Tucker, I was mildly disappointed with the hearing. I mean, I wanted the point to be, I wanted Mr. Zuckerberg to step up to the plate and say, look, 3 words, I'm on it. I get it. It can be fixed. I'm going to fix it, and we'll do it together. That's not what I heard. I just didn't feel like we connected with Mr. Zuckerberg today. I mean, look, Facebook is an extraordinary company. It's done magical things, but it's clear that the digital promised land has some minefields in it. One's the privacy issue. The other is the propaganda. And I don't want to have to vote to regulate Facebook, but by God, I will, unless they're willing to step up to the plate and address those 2 issues. I think they can. I hope they can. If they can't, we've got a bigger problem than just what we talked about today.
So here you've got the biggest provider of news in the United States with far more power than William Randolph Hearst ever had, with a long and proven track record of censorship in this country and other countries with the power to change election results. You don't think that's enough of a threat right there to act?
Well, I think that's a very important issue. Senator Cruz, Senator Sass made that point. I ran out of time. I wanted to make that point. I mean, everybody says, and I think it's true, poison is being spread on social media. Okay, what's poison?
Right.
Define poison. And look, I wanted a lot of our Democratic friends have made a big deal about, well, Cambridge Analytica, and they worked with President Trump. I wanted to ask Mr. Zuckerberg today about this statement that was made by somebody, Ms. Carol Davidson from President Obama's re-election campaign in 2012. This is what she said. She ran media analytics for the president. She said, Facebook was very candid that they allowed us to do things they wouldn't have allowed someone else to do because they were on our side.
Right.
I wanted to ask if that's an accurate statement, but I ran out of time.
So you don't think, I mean, finally, the Congress would have really uniquely the ability to get this under control if you think that too much power is vested in one company and they're, in effect, enemies of the First Amendment. I know Republicans don't like to regulate things, but do you think we're approaching a point where, for the good of the public, that may need to be done?
I don't think we're there yet, but I think a lot of it depends on how Mr. Zuckerberg reacts to this. I'll say it again, there are two issues. One's a privacy problem, the other is a propaganda problem. And the issue there is, how do we solve it without impinging on people's First Amendment rights? Now, that's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
And I want to be assured, didn't get it today, maybe we'll get it in the second round, that Facebook is not politically biased one way or the other. I don't want them pitching for the Republicans. I don't want them pitching for the Democrats either, though.
Yeah, well, they are. Senator, thank you. Great to see you.
You bet.
For more discussion of what happened today, Dave Manning is a tech entrepreneur and a fan of Facebook. Roger McNamee was one of Facebook's first investors and now a critic sometimes of the company. Both of them join us. So, Roger, first to you. The head of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, said today that he and the company are happy to censor hate speech, but was unclear exactly on what hate speech is, and then suggested that maybe artificial intelligence will settle that question. If you care about freedom of speech, does that make you uncomfortable?
The whole thing makes me uncomfortable, Tucker. I think the fundamental issue we've got here is that the business model is based on inflammatory emotions, anger, and fear. And once you build a business model on that, it's really the genie's out of the bottle and there's no way to put it back in. And Facebook has shown itself to be less than good at managing the dialogue on its site. And as you pointed out, they are absolutely editing everything. There are a million different things they could show me at any moment in time. They pick the 20 that serve their business model best, and quite clearly they have failed on that, precisely as Senator Kennedy just described.
So, Dave, we had a researcher on, a psychologist, recently called Robert Epstein, and he's taken a look at a bunch of different tech companies, and he said specifically about Facebook, if Mark Zuckerberg had sent a targeted message to people identified on Facebook as Hillary voters and encouraged them to vote, he estimates it could have changed the vote totals by 450,000 on Election Day 2016 and changed the course of the election. That's a lot of power for one media company to have. Even if you're for Mark Zuckerberg's political views, should any company have the ability to change election outcomes the way Facebook does?
No, I think you're giving him too much credit. I am not. First of all, I'm not a fan of that political worldview. I am a fan of free enterprise and letting him do what they will. I mean, by that standard, you could say how many people's votes does the New York Times editorial choosing a candidate or anybody else is make an influence. So I don't have I'm very wary of the Facebook site as a user. But this discussion about should we censor them and knock back their political influence, and are they a gigantic monopoly? I mean, I think that's crazy.
But they're literally a monopoly. So in the digital ad space,
they're not a monopoly, Tucker.
Yeah, well, they are.
Tucker,
they are actually. I know because I know the numbers. I've worked in this area a lot for 8 years. Let me just give you the following number. So Facebook and Google control over 90% of digital ads. So that means if you run news or anything else that's ad supported online, you're beholden to them. They control the market completely. Why is that not a monopoly?
If you want to say it's a monopoly for digital ads, that's fine. If you want to say it's a monopoly for political content, it's not.
Well, but hold on. Digital ads are what supports all online news coverage apart from the nonprofits. That's the whole deal right there. If you control the ads, you control the companies.
Tucker, are you worried about a monopoly in the digital ad business, or are you worried about a concentration of political power?
Well, I don't think there's a distinction between those two things. I'm worried, in addition to both, by the total inability of the Congress to respond to a looming threat to its own legitimacy from Facebook and Google. Roger, am I being insane here? I don't think
Tucker,
that I am.
I'm on your side on this issue because at the end of the day, the problem we have here is a massive concentration of power. And that concentration of power is in the hands of people who preserve the rights of the First Amendment for their corporations, but they tend to overlook the First Amendment rights of the people who are the users of the sites. And in that process, I mean, what we have is these things that are global. They are influencing democracy all around the world, and we can't find a single example of them influencing it for the better. And I'm with Senator Kennedy. I mean, this thing has gone on both sides. We've seen massive abuses of Facebook on both sides of this thing. And it doesn't look good either way. And we need to reduce Facebook's influence so that we don't have it determining the outcome of any election, whether it's 2012, 2016, 2018, or 2020.
Well, so I think that's right, because in the end, Dave, this is not an American company, or more precisely, a company that sees itself as an American company. I would argue that it in effect is, but they don't believe that. Google doesn't either. They're companies of the world, and yet they have more influence potentially over our voting patterns than Russia or China or any other government. So, like, why wouldn't that be a threat to democracy? I don't understand.
The worst part of it, Tucker, is that they behave as though they don't have any influence. And as a result, bad actors have been able to manipulate the system essentially undefended. And to David, my simple point here is that, having watched this company from its earliest days, it has evolved into something very different than it started out as. And I, too, am a believer in free enterprise. But I'm also a bigger believer in democracy, and I don't believe any company's rights come before the rights of the people of the United States.
So, Dave, I'm going to let you sum it up. Does that concern, did any of this bother you? I get that you're for free enterprise. I admire that. But did any of this bother you at all?
I largely stopped using the app in January when they went through their latest news revision to decide what I could see and not see. But that doesn't mean that I believe that Senator Kennedy or those other knuckleheads down there today in that hearing, which gives, I'd say it was a goat rodeo, but that's unfair to goat rodeos. Like, you can't let those people make those decisions. Consumers have to make those decisions. And your assertion that it's an unbreakable monopoly, it's just not.
Well, it's not only unbreakable, it's growing in its power. Anyway, thank you both. We're out of time, sadly. Appreciate it.